28 times 9, it's only that many watts as opposed to 108 times 9, and now do that for 35 rooms. The amount of wattage we will save in kilowatts is 91,000 kilowatts per year in one school. Sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money. But we're saving $91,000. The reason I had to write my letter is because PMS suffered the first growth pains, and it has been difficult. They put lights in, we didn't like them in the cafeteria, they weren't bright enough. They put lights in the classrooms, and they were put on the edge. They put 2 bulbs on the outside of the fixture, so with an LED light that shines down, you lost 1/3 of the light. They had to put a new kit in to put them closer, so they were 9 inches apart rather than 20 inches apart. They did that in every room, 9 times 30, 270 fixtures had to be changed. They did that correctly, and they went into the gymnasium, a beautiful gymnasium, and they replaced the lights, but they attached the lights to the conduit. It's not building code. They had to come back and they had to put it in the opposite way where you bolt it into the building, which they did. They did all of that. So we then went through those struggles, and the next thing is we got a proposal to have a loan to do the offset. So we were supposed to save approximately $6,000 to $8,000 a year, and then get a loan for $8,000 a year, and after 4 years, the loan would be paid off, and after that, all the money would be saved by the public. We got the first loan agreement, which I refused to sign on behalf of the board, because it was $12,000 a year, but we're only saving $8,000 a year. That's a problem, and I wrote that to you, that you can't lose $4,000 by doing this. Now, it only happened for about 4 to 6 years, and then we'd be making money, but that isn't what you agreed to. So we called back the consultant and said, this is not acceptable. You have to make the money, because how can 90,000 watts not pay for it? And you told us something about, it's not 8 cents that you're going to save per kilowatt, you're going to save 17 cents. Well, okay, now the number changed in October when you voted, and now it's February, and now the number is 17. Well, I'm a mathematician, and we know numbers. So it's either 8 or it's 17. So we went to Eversource and said, why are these numbers confusing? They said, well, first of all, you buy your electricity from another provider. So you only pay 8.2 cents. That's to our benefit. And there is a transmission charge that was not included in the original prospectus. So when I wrote this, there was a discrepancy that we would be losing 4,000. You'll notice that there is a colored thing where Mr. Rio then responded to every piece of my questions and answered them thoroughly, which he did. Again, this is issue number 5, but this is the last stage. And we did call Eversource, and they said, we will recover about 16 cents per kilowatt because the transmission charge, God bless us, but you not only buy the product called electricity, but they also have to pay the guy who brings you the electricity. So you're actually paying more. At 16 cents a kilowatt, we stand to save $2,000 a year. So I'm just asking that the board, since you were not really given the clear enough, accurate enough information up front, I was going to ask you to just put the program on hold. But we have Eversource information and now accurate information from Mr. Rio, and all I would ask is that you authorize me, once we get the verification of our first bill, which is at the end of February, that we can now go forward. You've already approved Memorial School, Shepherd Hill, and the ECC. Memorial is done. Shepherd Hill is done. Can't go backwards. And you've already approved ECC. I held up on ECC pending this information to you and your authorization to give me the authority to go forward with the 3rd stage of ECC, only pending the fact that we get that verification that we are saving 16 cents per kilowatt, and that the money that we are saving per month will more than pay the loan in 4 years.
When you get the first bills, will the loan be due then or be due?
No, we have not signed any loans.
That's what I'm saying.
And by the way, that's one piece. We were told in the original, those who came were told we would stop paying the loan only after all 3 projects were done. And I got 3 loans from MCOR, not your MCOR, this is MCOR. It's a loan company that wanted to originate on April 15 and start the first payment in April, and the project's not done. No, no, that doesn't work, because we haven't saved money to pay the money. So we told them no, and plus, we haven't started the other projects. So again, Mr. Rio went back and said to the company, no, you can't ask for the loan until we finish the project. So that was also corrected. But those were the challenges, and if you understand the magnitude of those challenges, the board really put themselves out there, and I respect you for trying to make this a better quality environment and save the community money and be ecological. That is one of your goals, and you are achieving it. But none of the information was aligning with what we thought we had voted on. So right now, it's a matter of just stopping, due diligence, stop, make sure that we have the savings, and once we do, Shepherd Hill's done, we can get those started, and ECC would be done probably in about 2 to 3 weeks, will be done by March. Then in March, you can then decide whether you want to do the MES building, which looks better now that the numbers are coming in. But there are new challenges at MES because it's an older building, and those have to be straightened out first as well. Those we'll do like we did with Shepherd Hill. Shepherd Hill went fairly effectively, right? Shepherd Hill was not half the problems that we had because we learned. Our issue here is that the board made a commitment based on information that we're now changed. I believe we're going to do well. I believe that we have the right information. I need a bill that can be mapped to last year to see that we're in fact saving $1,200 a month. If we are, the loan is only for $1,100 a month. We like that. That works.
I will say that from listening and going through meetings with the first selectman on this project, we did have a lot of concerns. It took a very long time to get those concerns addressed through the contractor. Personally, I would like to see us give the superintendent the authorization to continue the project on the ECC, but to table NUSUP. Because we asked questions in January on NUSUP Elementary, we still have not received answers on NUSUP Elementary. So I don't want to even see us progress into NUSUP without first really considering all of those, all of our questions. We had questions on the dates of the fixtures in the NUSUP. We had questions on library lighting, because you look up and there's the bulbs here in these lights. NUSUP Elementary has, I think, 4 different types of lights in their library, and they're even smaller. There's just, you learn so much about the dynamics of LED that we really have to look into. Is it the best learning environment with the LED? Are we going to get what we need for lighting? And these were the growing pains that we had at the other schools, so we want to make sure that we're addressing those. Is there any further discussion?
Why would we go forward with ECC though, our problems right now?
Problems all
Well,
set.
the problems for the most part have
Installation is
been,
not our problem. Our finances became the new problem.
and my
Right, if we
concern
don't pay
is
for it.
they would be beginning the work on the ECC, so if the superintendent is able to get the cost offset verified when the bill comes in, we're still waiting on that first bill from PMS. It should be in before our next meeting, but if he gets it, he can verify with Ron, then we should grant him the authorization to be able to say, yes, you can start work on the ECC.
I don't think so, and I don't like the Mark Real guy.
I'm just, I think the answer is shaky. I think we should stop the whole project until we get better information, but obviously we can have a discussion about it.
Is there further discussion?
Have we received the information that we need on ECC?
We have, and before any project like a new ECC gets done, they must show us the samples of what we approve. So those lights go on up here, do those big lights go on? Yes. Just put them on and that.
Other than LEDs?
No, but if can they just be put on? This will help you understand. But the question you're asking can be demonstrated right here.
Okay.
We're all gonna learn. We're all gonna learn. Okay, so here's the issue. So if you look up, and there's good lighting here, this is not LED lighting. So do you see these? These are particularly designed to have kind of like a diffused light that goes up, and then the ceiling has to be white to reflect down.
Right.
LED does not reflect up, it lights down. So that can only shine downward, and there is no downward in that light. So they have to come up with something that, because it'll shine upward, is what it'll do. So you really have to figure out what the LED response is. So at ECC, we have a lot of lights that you see out in the corridor, which are inlaid panels out there, see them? Those are fine, because those are squares. You see them out there on the hallway upstairs? But we have some lights that are suspended. So when a light is suspended, the light would be down, but you'd have a shadow above it. If you had only shadows at the top, the ceiling would look like a cave. It's called a cave effect. It would be a dark ceiling and light coming down. So they have to give us the sample that says this is how you match the lighting. They did it at PMS correctly. They did it at Shepherd Hill correctly. They will do it at ECC. So before the MES gets done, it will be shown to us and we'll know that we're getting what we need. So it has to be demonstrated before you approve.
But we still don't know we're saving money.
Oh, no, we don't know.
Why should we go forward with ECC? Right now, you're saying that we're not saving money. So why should we go forward with ECC? We're not saving money. That's what I'm confused with.
We're not saving money based on the terms of the loan that were being made.
Well, but
this is what we know.
No, but they also give us bad numbers in their estimate here with the 0.6. I mean, I do estimates every day, and I would put a hold on this project.
So just for your, whatever the decision of the board, it's fine, but let me just explain. What we had when we said the original is because we were going to recover less than the loan. What we found out both from Eversource, confirmed by Mr. Reel, and on the blue and red, or you got, we found that there is guaranteed, the recovery rate is 16 cents, not 8.6. The number was stated wrong, but it is to our advantage, number one. And like I told you, there's 90,000 kilowatts that we know we're saving. That number is more than the loan. So we now know that the money we will recover is correct. We just want to make sure that the first bill comes in, it validates that we have $1,200 savings, and we haven't paid a loan yet, but the loan would be $1,000, and then we're assured that the money that we save absolutely matches the loan. The loan is only for 4
But he
years.
also talks about how he's not in control of the loan.
He is an MCOR, that we have that loan directly
So
with MCOR.
So
That's us.
MCOR doesn't have to agree to anything that we agreed to with Mr. Reel.
Correct.
They're a separate entity.
Correct.
And it sounds like they're not agreeing to our agreement, so how can we make sure that they do?
So MCOR has said clearly, they will agree to whatever we want. We want to do a 5-year loan, 4-year loan, because that's a loan with us.
Okay.
What Mr. Reel did is install an energy savings system, and we couldn't see if the savings were going to match the loan. We didn't believe. We now have the evidence it should, and I want a bill before I stop the next project. After the bill confirms it, we already know the kilowatt savings. We just have to make sure the cost.
At this point, this is open for discussion. I understand we have one concerned board member. I'm just wondering if there's further concerns, because the other thing that we can do is schedule a special meeting and invite Mr. Reel to that meeting and invite the first selectman. But other than that, if there's a quorum to be able to push through with giving the superintendent authorization for the ECC.
Make the motion, that's fine.
Okay. So let's, I'll entertain a motion if we're doing that. But if there's still valid concerns, I just want to reiterate, it's my personal feeling that I want to see us table Moose Up Elementary.
So would you like to suspend the LED conversion to Moose Elementary?
But go forward with the ECC.
What's
one,
it
yeah.
proceed?
Moose Up Elementary has not been approved at all. And we never approved
Yeah,
it.
'cause I-
We'll just move that to March pending we'll table that. And then what I'd like to do is authorize Superintendent DePietro to continue the project if and when the cost offset is verified.
I move that we table it to Moose Elementary.
Okay. So,
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Table moves.
table Moose Up Elementary.
And I'll second it.
Second, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions?
That was easy.
That's easy. So then, I'd be looking for a motion to give the superintendent authorization to continue the project as soon as the cost offset is verified. If that offset is not verified, I'd like a special meeting so we can discuss the terms of the LED.
I could go with that, I could
Okay.
take that.
So moved.
All right, second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. So Tammy, did you get that?
Yeah, that wasn't mouthful.
If it's not verified on the bill, then we'll call a special meeting. Because at that point, we'd have way too many concerns to even merit going through with.
And that special meeting will be inviting Mr. Reel and,
Probably Eversource.
The
too.
first one.
And the first selectman.
Yeah,
Yeah. In the town.
All right. No, because this is a different, yeah. All right, moving on to, yep, the fiscal year 2018 audit corrective action. Mr. DePietro.
so you have, the next item in your agenda, if you're following, is a corrective action plan. And it will be just before the section 9,
Right after the LED.
after the LED.
Sorry, I'll do yours.
Okay, yeah. So I would just ask, okay, you got it. I would ask you to look at page 2 where it says comments on the findings, and again, for the public to be able to hear and understand. So there was an audit finding for the last fiscal year, 17-18. And they found a discrepancy that they felt needed to be cleaned up. The auditors explained from the beginning that this is not a lack of reconciliation or not having the monies accounted for, but there was an issue between the reporting systems. What we did is we worked with the auditors, and you'll see under section A, there were 3 things that were determined, so at least you know where the issue came from. So we gave a check to eChip for $337,345, big number, we make checks like that. We did that and we reported it to Webster Bank. Yes, yeah, on the next page. Right there, right. So what happens is we contact Webster Bank and we do what's called a warrant, and we list all the checks that will be paid. That was done correctly. Webster knew that we had the checks to be paid. We balanced, we reconciled. Webster Bank and Plainfield schools are happy. We then take that information and we have to put it into a recording system so we can report to you, and that's called Phoenix. Phoenix is proprietary in that the town doesn't use Phoenix. They have a different system. That's where the error is, that our Phoenix system and the town systems don't really talk to each other. So when we put the information into our Phoenix system, it was put in as an encumbrance, not as a check. So what the town sees on our record is that we encumbered it, but the money should still be there, but it was a check. Or we did it as encumbrance, figuring that the money is still there. We think there's $500,000 in our account, but that $334,000 was actually a check. So there was a discrepancy between the town's record and our record. So that was the first one. The second part is you have to tabulate all of the checks that are in there, and in the tabulation system, if you've ever worked with Excel, you might say tabulate C1 to C18 if you guys are in math class and do that. But if there's a 19th check, doesn't show up in the tabulation of the total. So we actually did a calculation total that missed the final check of $24,850. Again, Webster knows the bank, we know that we reconciled to it, but our recording system had an error in it. That normally would be picked up, but it wasn't. Between the town and us, it wasn't caught. There was also one other thing that the auditors said is, they began the year telling the town that they needed to make an adjustment of $46,000. And I don't know, that's not our business, that needed to be reconciled. But all of those say the same thing. Basically, they want to know the actions to be taken. So number one, the action being taken by the school department is that a monthly reconciliation of the school's investment account with Webster Bank is going to be verified internally. So whatever we send to them, it's sent by, which it is, by Mr. Lucia, Jana and he may sit down to make sure they cross-reference what does Webster Bank have and what do we have. The second thing is that the Phoenix system will then also be checked for the data to make sure, especially where there's a non-standard deposit and debit. When something crops up, you can't look past it, you're going to say, let's straighten that out. So any non-standard deposits and debits would be cross-referenced a second time. Finally, the most important thing is that the school business manager will be available monthly to review with the town finance director the Webster Bank investment account and that will be reconciled with the town and the school concurrently at the end of each month. So that's really the strongest connection, because if the town and the school are meeting, and we have tried to do that this past year, but it needs to be done with more diligence. And with that, the auditor said, you've met your compliance. If you look at it, the statement by the auditor in section C is, finding 2017, only one material weakness was internal control over finance reporting and budget monitoring is no longer considered to be a material weakness. That's the sentence you want to read. We put it on its own page. And I'll bet you. No. So the point is, we actually resolved the audit, and we also found the reason why it happened. So it's not a problem with our system of giving the statement of checks to be made, to be paid and reconciling. It's really between two systems. So there is a little good news here on two sides. One is Phoenix has told us that they're going to discontinue their support. So somewhere over the next 18 months, we're going to be looking at Phoenix may have to leave, and of course we'll look at the town to make it one system. So we've talked with
So we're looking at getting the talks with itself.
Right, we're going to be on one system. Whether the town and the school want a different system together, or they want us to join the system, we will need a new one, so we might as well get something that now is absolutely transparent between the town and school. That's an easy one. The other one is, we had one fraudulent check in my 7 years that I've been here. Down in Florida, someone made a check that looked like ours and cashed it.
Moving our Board of Education check?
Yeah, a school department check for about $1,300, $1,800, whatever, 13,
Wow.
right?
Really?
Something like that.
Yeah. 79.
What is it?
79.
No, not 70. No, you don't. No one's gonna cash a check for $79.
It was like 34.
Okay, there was one, they have to go home today. There was one fraudulent check.
$2,000.
Webster Bank has been working with this, and the police are working on this, because it wasn't a fraudulent check from someone. Well, someone found a check and then made it out to Anthony. He said, here's money. And they cashed the check. Could have been maybe at like a casino where it looks like your name and you have an
So Webster
ID.
Bank gave them the money?
Well, no, whoever they cashed it gave the money, but Webster Bank is liable for that money. So they instituted a whole new system of checks and balances. And just because it's a little bit humorous, so I might as well just tell you, the little bit of humor, which was not funny, was Webster Bank initiated this new checks and balance system on Friday. Not a good day to do that. And they planned the training of our staff on Tuesday. So we put checks in on Friday,
Yeah, that's right.
and 32 checks
Yes.
bounced.
32.
You can't make this one up. So, we've obviously been trained since on Tuesday, while you guys were getting ready to go home.
They notified the town on Friday that they were,
No, they notified them on Thursday
Thursday.
that they were gonna go live Friday, but you know the town,
it was closed on Friday.
so they went live anyways, and they didn't tell us. We're not in that loop. And then on Monday, the checks bounced, and we got everybody calling us, oh my God! And one of them was to Gatco. Not nice, because our kids have to get to school. So it's a little bit humorous. If you can understand, it's not a good thing to do. It can happen. Shouldn't happen, but it did. So we all got trained. I didn't, but we had our staff trained. We already verified 18 new checks that were
35
Oh.
on Tuesday.
on Tuesday.
And we have 7 today.
And 7 today. So now every check that goes before Webster has to have a second verification. And they send you a list and you look, you know, Mr. Mike Cartier, you got X amount, that's correct, good, and, you know, Mrs. Lemieux, she got a check, yep. Mr. Petro, he gets nothing, yep, okay. So, they're gonna enjoy this video, aren't they?
My name is misspelled, I can't get money.
They don't get any money. They don't get any money. The point is that that glitch only proved all the more that there's going to be better systems, even on the bank's part, to make sure that these gaps will not happen.
We only had the one audit problem.
That was it. There was only one monitoring report audit. That was it, and it's been fixed.
Okay.
All right.
Congratulations.
Moving on to PHS graduation requirements.
Well, this is very simple. You know that you made the approval to modify the schedule, and you know that you made the approval that the freshmen coming in, you can't find it? Whoops. Yeah, I can make life easy. It's easy. Here it is. Easy enough.
Okay, thanks.
So, the board made a decision that they would, go to the new schedule, and that they would require that at least freshmen coming in would have that one class that they would have as a directed study, so that they can get better freshman year and have more success. I don't know if you guys are quite bright, and maybe you didn't need it, but we just see that there are a lot of kids who are having trouble in ninth grade. When you did that, instead of them being able to get 32 credits, they really only will be able to get 31 credits. And because of that, we've asked that the board also modify the graduation requirements, not to reduce any of the core subjects, but to allow 26 credits for graduation instead of 27. And we believe it's appropriate because any student who's got the 26 credits 4 years from now probably should be able to graduate this year with 26 credits, because they're not losing any courses, they're gaining a study. So it really is just a matter of making the adjustment from 27 to 26. The state is only 24. It's not even 25.
It's going up to 25.
It's going up to 25 next year. We're ahead by 2. So we're ahead by 1 if you still do this. And that's because we have a 32 credit option now at 31. And then the only other thing I believe, if you're going to make that motion, I think that's fair to the students and to give the high school the chance to make sure that they've modified, more children can attain the 26 credits and make graduation. But I will ask, because it's this meeting and because they're in the process of talking to freshmen, that you also support the state graduation requirements. I told you about these, that they want to have 1 year of world language. You did that even in our budget meeting. We're required to have it. That should be in your motion, that we do require that. And I told you they have to now have 2 years, 1 year of physical ed and 1 year of health, not 4, 2 of each. So if you would be willing, as a board, to just endorse that they will adopt the reduction to the PHS graduation requirements from 27 to 26, and that you will follow the state graduation requirements to include the 1 year world language and the 2 years of physical education health, you will basically give the high school the ability to let everybody know coming in, this is what you now have to prepare for. You don't want freshmen to say, oh, I don't need to take French in my freshman year, and in senior year say I can't graduate. I mean, you got to tell them now. Take the course. They don't have to take the freshman year, but the problem is already to do it. Take the course and get it out of the way.
Is world language an elective right now?
World language is only an elective. It is not a requirement, except when you go to college. If you don't have language, you may not get in. So we encourage it, and about 60% of our children take language, but there are at least 30% that don't. They choose not
I
to.
just could, for my son's going to high school next year, he came home with a list, and world language was not a requirement. So,
Yeah, it means you.
so that's what we're changing.
You need
tonight.
it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's what we're getting into.
That's right.
So this would be 2 motions. One, to adopt a reduction to the PHS graduation requirements from 27 to 26 credits for graduation.
I move that.
Madam Chair, is my microphone working?
Yeah.
I have a question. Typically, I'm a new board member from Sterling, but in the past, I've been on the board. And typically, when we had things like this, both the Sterling and the Plainfield boards met together and voted on this type of issue. So
For
my
the
question-
state requirements?
No, things when you start changing these kinds of things at the high school. So my question is that the way we should be doing this, or the way you're approaching it now?
Or should we get with Sterling and have a discussion, you're asking? In other words,
Do you have a board meeting next week?
We do.
Then can I ask our board to endorse this with the approval of the Sterling board, that you can take it up next week?
We could do that, I suppose. Now, do you still have joint board meetings between Sterling?
Do we still get together? Yes, we do.
We have our
Yep,
Sterling.
and we have a representative to your board,
Right,
Mr.
and do you vote on things at those?
None unless there's a reason to vote. Most of the discussion's been around operation of the cooperative agreement.
Okay, so what you're suggesting is you do these 2 motions and vote one way or the other, and then have Sterling do the same at their meeting.
And we'll be there to present so that they,
Is it next
And Mike will be there
Wednesday?
too.
I'll be there.
yes.
Yeah, okay, that sounds very reasonable.
That sounds reasonable?
Board of Finance is that evening.
Well, we won't, but Mike can, if
Right,
Mike can
are
be
you
there.
planning on,
And
it's the 20th
Can
is
we
your
get a
meeting?
representative from the high school to
Next
make sure
week,
they?
I don't know if it's Wednesday or Thursday.
Usually the Wednesday.
Okay. We'll work with our high school just because that is the town board of finance meeting for the budget. But we can work with our high school representatives and, if Mr. Cartier, who serves as the Sterling liaison, for your board there, is able to be there, we'll work it out to get all of the
Okay,
information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
When is that meeting?
It's the 20th, he believes, next Wednesday.
But you have an event going next, or is that March? March. Oh, okay. Very good.
Yep.
All right, so, okay, so I move that we reduce graduation requirements from 27 credits to 26 credits. And this will be subject to the agreement of Sterling.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Okay. Oh, thank you. The meeting for Sterling Board of Ed is February 20th, 6:15, in their community room. So, all right. Thank you very much. All right. So motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Any further discussion? Motion passed.
Also move that we adopt the state graduation requirements, which includes 1 year of world language and 2 years for physical education and health.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.
May I ask when you get your packets for the board meetings, you get them on Monday or?
We already, if you were to send this to Beverly, she'll get it to everybody.
Okay, I just know that you can't change your agenda, so we need to be on your agenda.
We can add it at the beginning of the meeting.
Oh, you can?
You can have a motion to do that.
Oh. Okay.
Okay.
All right. New business, fiscal year 19 budget transfers. Mr. Lucier.
Well, thank you, Chairman As I referenced in the beginning of our meeting with our budget and facility report, I was going to ask the board to approve the transfers to reconcile our 18-19 budget to move the monies into the special ed tuitions line item. And this has no impact to the budget in total. It's a zero change. So this is item 9A. If you want to take a look at it, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. We discussed this at our subcommittee meeting, and at that time all answers were provided. So look for a motion to approve transfers.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer for special ed tuitions.
I'll second it.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. All right, next we have a Killingley Bower community member. Previously, we have appointed, we have had a representative to the Killingley Bower educational program from Plainfield. Currently, I'm looking for, you have in front of you a letter just stating that they're just seeking our appointment, so I'm looking to sustain the representation on the Killingley BOAB committee
With the same person.
with the same
Brad
person.
Bork.
His time's expired, they want a position to agree.
Yep,
Correct.
so it would be sustaining, so I'm looking for a motion.
I don't, otherwise it's going.
I move that we sustain Mr. Brad Burke.
Yep,
He has a 3-year term.
three-year term.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Rena, grant update.
You'll need a microphone.
keep you up to date on the grants that we've been writing this year to a total of $1,791,036. Any questions? Are we happy?
No, this is already this year.
This already we've
This
got.
is what we get.
What we get this year, yeah. Still always looking for more grants, you know.
But this is what
might
we
be
got.
able
Yeah,
to-
okay.
Okay?
What does this work out to in
Okay,
mills?
thank you.
Just out of curiosity.
What is
What
that?
does it work out in mills?
Yeah.
Well, $1 million represents 1 mil for you on your tax rate.
Okay, so
One
basically,
mil.
our tax.
You're saving about almost 2
Two,
million.
almost 2
Two
mills.
mills higher,
Yeah.
good job.
Rena, just a question on the school security grants. Are these new grants or are they, are new? Okay. Okay, good.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you.
Try to remind everybody that the U.S. grants and the state grants are non-divertible. They cannot be supplanted. The money only comes if you use it for the purpose.
Right.
So it's not like, can you cut your budget by using this? You can add remedial teachers, you can provide ELL services, English language learner services, but you can't say, I like that money, maybe I can use it for a new track and field. Like that, you can't. It's non-divertible and it cannot be supplanted. So what you see is 1.7 million benefiting the community on specific services. And the reason it's not a tax problem is because if you don't get the money, the program goes away.
Right.
So if there's no remedial, you just don't get it. It's not like, oh, I owe 90,000 in the remedial, but you don't, the program goes with the money. So, but it's very good to see that we are generating $1.8 million a year in funding.
All right. Moving on to the high school science curriculum, anatomy, physiology.
There we are.
All right, so our science department head, Candy Carrigan, has met with Mr. Worth and with the science department, and she has, there's a list in your packet of the standards that are required to be learned by the time they take their 11th grade science test for the state. So they did an audit of the standards and where they were being introduced in each of the biology and integrated science classes. They found out that there were currently a number of standards that are not being covered in those two courses. So they recommended that chemistry become a required course in the third science. You need to take those, as far as the state is concerned, you have to have 3 credits in science. They will be writing different levels of chemistry so that, Tandy said that any of the students will be able to pass chemistry at the level that they take it at. But by doing this, they have changed which standards will be offered in each of the classes and evened it out a little bit more. So what they're proposing is that chemistry become the third required course. Right now, integrated is required, biology, and then they would like chemistry to become a junior year course so that students will be better prepared for the 11th grade science test in the spring. Want to add something?
Because there was a lot of standards we were missing in our 2 main courses, so that's why we needed to incorporate chemistry to help meet all the standards that the kids need to meet the state requirements.
And also so they can build upon their science, in freshman year, they do integrated, sophomore year they do biology, and then you have chemistry at the end, at least they're scaling it up, so that they're getting the basis first.
Right. And, they can also take, there will be an opportunity for them to take additional science classes if they would like to add that in the electives. So that's, do we need a motion for that?
So I'm looking for a motion to approve the anatomy and physiology.
No.
Or, I'm sorry, the chemistry,
Chemistry.
adding chemistry as a mandatory course.
Right, that's what
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The second thing is what you just mentioned, and that's just a name change. When you look in the course catalog, you'll see that the course that is called Life Science actually is an anatomy and physiology class. So they would like that misnomer to be changed to anatomy and physiology in the course
Any
catalog.
motion for that as well?
So looking for a motion?
I move that we change the life science name to anatomy and physiology.
Motion's been made
Second.
and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Sugarman, special education report.
Thank you for having me come in. Being my first month, wanted to provide more of a discussion and kind of a formal report right now about where things stand and some of the actions that I've taken since being here. So first coming in as a special ed person who oversees special education, one of the first things you start to look at is compliance. You want to focus on compliance and where you stand. Because my ultimate goal is to get into and improve the quality of the services and the programs that we offer, to make sure that we have a robust set of differentiated supports for our students. But if we're not healthy with our compliance, it's always hard to get there. So I'm spending time looking at our compliance for multiple levels, because there's multiple areas of compliance that we're looking at, from when we first evaluate a student to ongoing reports to how we do Medicaid billing and all of these things around systems and operations around compliance. I'm spending some time there unpacking it. After initially looking at it, I'll develop an initial hypothesis, and I want to give that a little bit of time to see if that hypothesis is something that's across the district or focused at a particular school. I'm also spending lots of time trying to be in schools as much as possible, meeting with staff, meeting with principals. I've had meetings with different union reps and presidents just to start a dialogue and conversation around special education. I'm having conversations with different parents and wanting to engage different parents in formal settings, informal settings, just to be gathering information to help inform the work that I need to do going forward. So overall, a couple things that I've discovered is, we have a very active, differentiated kind of mindset of staff. We have a lot of staff that really try to explore all options for all kids and try to discover what is the optimum amount of support that this child needs. Also with the administration and admin at the school, really saying that, hey, what can I do to really keep this child here and maximize the level of support, make sure that's happening. And the parents I've met are passionate and informed and want the best for their child. And what I found is that's a much better set of parents to be working with than parents that are kind of, I don't know what to do. So one of my tasks is to continue to grow that group of parents into a informed body, a knowledgeable body, so they can appropriately and feel comfortable advocating for their son or daughter. Like that's an important step, and it's an important step for us as a district to really have our parents be true partners in that sense. So not shying away from giving them knowledge and giving them skills so they can do that job and feel confident in their city and community. For right now, there are kind of four main buckets that I'm going to continually be looking at over the next couple months. And then starting to formalize some action steps and goals, some tasks that are aligned to our district strategic plan for the work going forward. So obviously compliance, that's a big thing. That is one area where, as a pupil services office, we can get very stuck and sucked into from the state level if our compliance is not good. That's an area where the state and the federal government can start to withhold IDA grant funds. So we want to make sure we're healthy with our compliance. That is kind of the bedrock and foundation of special education. We want to continue to look at and evaluate and observe our programs that we're offering. Right now, Plainfield has a good set of high-quality programs that are offering. IOP, the RSP, to early childhood supports, to PYD, to the addition of pathways. And we want to look at ways that we can build upon those strengths of those programs, and the ways that we can continue to refine them and make sure that they are truly high quality. And we are seen as a Plainfield in this region, in this state, is really providing high quality services for their kids. Really looking at and investing time in formalizing our parent partnerships and looking at parents as truly partners in the PPT process. I always like to get to the point where parents really believe that their child's case manager is the number 2 advocate, that I am parent is number 1, my child's case manager is number 2. And so building those partnerships and giving knowledge to parents, using them for advisory, advice, input, but also helping boost their ability to appropriately advocate for their child is always a place you want to be. You don't want to be adversarial, you want to really be that partnership with the parents. And then really looking at what is the systems and operations that exist within special education. From evaluating kind of where we stand in Medicaid. Where are those systems around Medicaid? I know there was a CREC report, and that was one of the things that was initially flagged in the first Department of Social Services reports that I received on a monthly basis Medicaid reimbursement. I can tell you, in my previous school district, that was less than half, or more than half. The salary we were averaging around $2,500 a month in Medicaid reimbursement. Plainfield is around $900. So to 1,000. So looking at Medicaid, boost that reimbursement and return that's there, but other systems and operations where we're not necessarily working busy and just always adding people, we're working smart within the Pupil Services Office, and we're maximizing our amount of time, so we're maximizing the amount of services that we're able to provide for our students, for our teachers, for our schools. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time there as well. And as the year progresses, a lot of this stuff will start to be, the hypothesis will turn into action steps, will turn into goals, and will be shared with Superintendent DePietro, with the schools, and then with you all formally in board settings as well. So those are some of the initial things that I'm kind of working on, and I'm still very much trying to stay in that discovery phase, as I call it, gathering as much information before I say, okay, these are the things that we need to change. It's unfair to come in and say, what I did here is what we're going to do here. Plainfield is unique. Plainfield is diverse. Some of the needs that are in Plainfield are shared amongst every school district. How do we manage outplacement costs? How do we increase? Some of that's not different, but the way we approach it is unique for Plainfield, and so I'm going to stay in that discovery phase as possible, meet with as many stakeholders as possible before we start to formalize our action steps going forward. Questions?
I'm looking forward to, as time progresses, hearing your continued thoughts and hearing what special education reports.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, special education excess costs.
So I will refer you to the section that you saw in your budget packets, and for the public's understanding, in this year, beginning on August 23rd, we placed our first student out of district in addition to who already existed. So we already have a number of students who are placed in programs and tuitions. But on August 23rd, our first student, that placement was $76,000. Tonight you heard that Mr. Lucier asked the board to do the transfers necessary to move any monies that we could possibly move to offset the cost that we have incurred for just a unique thing, an anomaly that's happening this year. 12 students placed, not projected back in May or June when the town voted in our appropriation. And so when you look at the total of those students, not including transportation, 4 buses bringing these, just 4 buses, and there could be more, would be over $100,000 added to this cost, because these children are not all going on a bus with 60 other children. One child will go to Groton Center, or Oak Hill, or Raymond Hill. You don't have 4 buses going out there because you only have 1 or 2 children. So what you have in front of you is the documentation provided to the first selectman, to the Board of Finance, but it was done on your behalf. But I really do need the board, because you've been privy to this information, to virtually take the motion that you want to present the formal request to access a portion of the special ed excess aid to offset this cost. And again, for clarity, we receive about $700,000 a year in a grant from the state, which is defined as special ed excess aid. That aid is given when districts submit the number of children who have very high cost placements or very high cost service. If the child is not a child from DCF, if it's a child of ours that moved into our district, you have to go 4.5 times our normal per student expenditure. So about 14.4, 14.5 is our average. Multiply that, let's say by 5, it's under $70,000, approximately $60,000. And when you have a cost, and we have children not here that are already outplaced, not even just here, that are $109,000 placements. Add to that a bus, $30,000, and $130,000 is far excess of a $60,000. About 80% of that can be reimbursed. The state calculated, based on our documentation this year, and we've done this for the last 7 to 10 years, that they will award a grant to the town for about $700,000, and that's on your budget pages. You know that we talk about revenues, and we say one of the anticipated revenues is special ed excess. When we don't need extra money than what the town gave us and we were able to cover all of our costs, the town just keeps that money as part of the offset to make sure that the taxes are what they are and that the school is funded, and if there's excess money, it can go into the fund balance. This year, uniquely, 12 students entered that we did not know about. $583,000 of more cost. So Mr. Lucier explained to you, we've now moved every dollar that we can from salaries, from health insurance that we don't owe because those people are not here to have to pay the health insurance for. We saved $80,000 to $100,000. Unemployment, we saved. We have only one unemployment person in the district right now. So all that money got aggregated to offset these costs. We are still $350,000 short of trying to offset these costs in their entirety, including some of the other costs. So this letter went to the town, and you see under the general statute 10-76G, it says, payment by the state for such excess costs shall be made to the local or regional Board of Education. So the grant is made to the Board of Education. 75% will be given in February. So by the end of February, we will be getting 75% of $700,000. They will give us a check for about $500,000. It says, the amount due each town pursuant to the provision of this subsection shall be paid to the treasurer of the town entitled to such aid, provided that the treasurer shall treat such grant or a portion of the grant, we're only asking for a portion, which relates to special ed expenditures incurred in excess of such town's Board of Education budgeted estimates of such expenditures, and that money shall be used as a reduction in expenditures by crediting the expenditure account rather than the town revenue. So the law is absolutely explicit. They give us a grant every year. When we can manage our costs, that money helps to keep the taxes down. When the excess costs come in, as the documentation you have, that we had really over $600,000 of new excess cost placements unknown to us before August, then a portion of that money, so because there's $700,000, Mr. Lucier and I look at probably the kindest thing or the most appropriate, good stewardship would be to say to the town, we'll reduce as much as we can, but we would like to access half of the cost, $350,000, because that will balance our accounts. And the good part is, it's not given to us as money. It's given as an offset. So our appropriation does not go up. The town doesn't have to approve it like as the voters, because it's not a tax impact, no tax increase, no appropriation increase. All it does is pay the bills that already pre-exist. And that money keeps the MBR flat, it keeps the appropriation flat, and it basically covers unanticipated costs. I've been here, this is my 8th year. we've always been able to resolve the excess costs within our budget. This is the first year that, given the budget we have, and if you remember, we were flat funded in taxes. I showed you the amount. This year we're flat funded in taxes, and we received ECS aid, but it's $200,000 short than we were 2 years ago. We're functioning on a minimum budget, but we've been making it work. This is just absolutely, it's beyond the expectation we would have had. We try to account for all students. Basically, what I'm asking for you tonight, and I know that you've already had the conversation in your budget meetings, is virtually that there be a motion to bring this request formally before the Board of Finance, asking that they award the requested amount as a portion of the special ed excess aid as an offset to our cost pursuant to the grant regulation. Simply that I'm asking that you authorize the request.
At this point, I'd be looking for a motion to formally present this request to the Board of Finance next week at their meeting on the 20th.
I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I have a couple of questions, which in effect the motion. Mr. DePietro, the 12 students that got put into these programs, were they students who were already here and had their programs changed? Or are these all people that moved into the district?
We have a combination of both. We have a detailed report. There are actually 43 students in their entirety that have, these are the 12, some of them, about a third of them, all brand new. We didn't meet them. They moved in. We have their enrollment date, their placement date, and yet about 2/3 of them were identified within the year. More of the ones that happened after August, because we had to meet them before we knew to place them.
And
one, just because the numbers, we also have to be careful because the numbers sometimes are so low that we don't want to indirectly potentially identify someone. But typically the three things that happen are DCF placements, children moving into district, and then us newly identifying student that needs to be outplaced are the three common.
are any of these outplacements out of state?
No.
We do have a kid in a school that is in Rhode Island.
In this group?
That's new?
In this one, right? No.
No, not the new group, no.
But how many DCF placements did we get this year? You told me you were shocked by the number. DCF.
Well, I was shocked when I first got here, Jay, we had about 4 since I've been here.
Just DCF.
Just DCF.
That's not accounted for, obviously, yeah.
The only thing difference in the DCF, if it's placed by DCF, we get 80% of everything beyond one tuition course. So if it's $100,000 placement, we get 85% of the $85,000. If we place them, we get 85% of 4.5 times our course. So we get more money back on a DCF child because they're not a tax-paying resident. They don't believe the taxpayers should bear the burden for a child who's placed here by DCF because they need a place to live. So we get more money back on a DCF child.
Okay. All right, moving on, we already did the MES LED conversion in that Mrs. Berry said that introduced a motion to table MES until we get our answers. That was passed. So moving on to fiscal year 2020 budget update.
This is the last item on your agenda, and I know it's like 10 of 9, but I do want to tell you, at the board meeting that we had on the budget workshop, you asked us to look into some ways to preserve programs that would be lost because of budget reductions, because we tried to come in with a conservative budget. To do that, I can only tell you that where the numbers are, and I'll tell you that you'll have to go to, yep, I'm going to ask you to go basically to page 12, which will be the cost summary. And I'll just highlight where the changes we make. It'll look like a horizontal page with a top called cost summary, yep, and the bottom is the state revenue, yep. So in your original budget that you met on Saturday, I believe that the budget we were asking for was about 690,000. This has now been reduced to 673,000. So if you asked us to add some things back, how did we go lower? So I'll tell you how we do that magic. We anticipated 6 retirements, but you notice that you approved 3 more tonight, and you've already done 3. So we now expect that there will at least be 7, and I added 1 more retirement savings. The retirement savings alone from a person who may be at 75 to 78,000, coming in now at 45 to 48,000, is about 30,000. We actually estimate approximately between 25 and 30,000. And what I did is, I took that amount of extra money that we say we might be able to bring in, and I put that against a part-time world language teacher at the high school. Because you saw me move a 60, I shouldn't say the number because there's only one person there. You saw me move a teacher from the middle school to the high school for world languages. Because if we had no more money, I have a requirement by law to teach world languages to every child at the high school. I don't have that law at the middle school. So I moved that person to the high school. But then you asked me to preserve what this board has put as a priority to keep world language. So what I did is I went to our records. Well over 65% of our children are taking language at the high school. So we might have 60 children who might need language in the freshman year, 40 to 60. Because there's only right now 135 children in the freshman class. Yep. Half of them would be 60, a little less would be about 50. So that's only 3 classes that I'd have to have. Now, it's hard to find a part-time teacher, but the reality is, number one, if I find a part-time teacher, it's going to cost me $30,000 if they are a $60,000 teacher. That's the first beginning, so I budgeted for that. Number 2, if I put that person at the high school, we could get someone dually certified. The person could do French and Spanish. One of the things you don't want to do is have every child only experience Spanish and then say, why isn't anybody taking French? But Spanish is the more dominant language. So by doing a half-time person at the high school, he gets not only the coverage of the additional kids who must be added, not all kids like at the middle school, so I can do a half-time, and I have the opportunity to bid for and offer a position that's dual language certified, French and Spanish. So I made that change for you. There was a question about could I do something on guidance. I cannot find that monies right now, but I do believe we have a good guidance program. We do have that. We were hopeful to expand the guidance service. I don't see that in this budget right now. It would have to come from, maybe we'll find other money, but right now I wouldn't faithfully give you a budget that it would be going up, asking for well over 700,000, and I'm not sure that's a starting place with the town and the Board of Finance. I think we have to show some conservative. It's not that we won't put it in. And the other one was a request for some secretarial support, and I'm looking at our current secretarial model and seeing if we can provide secretarial in a different way other than a financial and added way. So I did try to address the 3 things there were some other things that were advised of us to look into, but they weren't financial issues, it was really more operational issues. In this budget right now, you see a little bit of a conservative drop of 673, and you'll notice that the impact on the town is 697. For those of you who are a little newer to it, because I know you were with us, but everybody couldn't be there, we originally said, and it's qualified, we really need $900,000 to really operate everything you've asked for, and the highest cost of that is special education for an increase. So what you see under the revenue side of it, on the bottom, you'll see special ed excess grant. And on the right side, you'll see that we put a $300,000 offset against special ed. So up in the cost summary now, we're now doing it a systematic way. Instead of asking the town in the middle of the year to give the excess cost, we're asking the Board of Finance and the First Selectman to structurally design a portion of the special ed excess as a cost offset to special ed. Now that's a lot of words, but let me just show you. If you look on the top half of the budget, and you look under location pupil personnel and go all the way across, you'll see that the increase was only $148,000. In your first budget, that was $448,000. What I did is, I took money from the special excess aid from the state, applied it to special ed, so we'll still get the service, and what that says to the taxpayers is instead of granting us $300,000 more, you're actually using state money to offset the tax burden. That's a true statement. If you don't apply that $300,000, we would have to ask for $973,000. If we apply the state aid against it, instead of waiting till you have a crisis, if you apply it directly, you actually lessen the burden on the taxpayer. So right now, this is a budget. You have to review this in March and pass a budget, not mine, you have to pass a budget. If you feel you want more time to look and think, and you want a special meeting, you would have to schedule that before March. If you think you can do it at the next meeting, and you need us to come up with other ideas, I'll do whatever you want, have another meeting, or plan for March, but somewhere you have, by March, right after the meeting, you must hand the town budget, because they have to collect it all departments and bring it to the board.
At our March meeting, we have to have.
You have to have you're required by charter to hand your budget to the town selectmen. That goes to the Board of Finance. Actually, the charter says March 1st, they must give us to the day after your meeting. They're very kind.
So,
What do we need right now?
we're not looking for a motion.
Nothing right now, right?
You don't need it only because
Yeah, this is FYI.
this is right now just to say, do you have enough information? But you can make a decision in March, that's what I would do, so I would do it now. It'll give you time to think,
You
ask.
know, I'm still going through the budget, and I'm still looking and evaluating it all.
Yeah.
And I just received tonight the information on sports, so I'm going to continue to look at that, and at the extracurriculars as
You only have
well.
4 more weeks.
I know, so, I'm good. I'm good. I think I have the answers I needed, so thank you for getting me that information.
I just suggest to the board members, individually, if you feel questions arising, you should contact the chair. That is not a FOIA, that is not any other issue, because it is one board member talking to a board member saying, I think I need a meeting. If you feel you need collective time together, let her know as soon as
It might be
possible.
a question that I've had in the past too, and I'm happy
Right.
to address that question too, so that we can go forward in March.
Right.
With that, I just want to remind all members, I'd really encourage you to attend the joint meeting with the Board of Finance next week, February 20th. They meet at 6:30 now, because I know they changed their time. Right at Town Hall. That is a very important meeting. We will be discussing the ECS that we had to present to them, and to start to kind of answer some questions about budget season.
Your policies, subcommittee might be a little late in getting there.
I understand that there is policy. What time is policy?
5:30.
Okay,
So we'll make sure
if
that-
you can try to wrap up, and if you can come over to Town Hall.
And I'm going to be in Sterling.
We understand. I understand, because you have to be in Sterling that night. But if any other members can be there, that would be much appreciated, because this is one of the big ones.
What time?
6:30.
You got 1 hour. I'm free for now.
All right, with that, is there a superintendent's report?
No, with this.
All right, so I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion's been made. Seconded, all in favor? All opposed? Motion carries.